There was once a famous workshop. There was once a famous workshop called Est. And in the workshop, you would go, they would lock you in a room for 12 hours. You weren't allowed to use the bathroom for a bunch of other fun things that happened there. But among other things, they would ask you over and over again, do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? And they would ask people repeatedly, and everyone started out, what does he mean? Do I get it? Do I get it? What are they talking about? And eventually someone would say, I get it. And then the next person would say, I get it. And then the next person would say, I get it. And soon you had all these people saying, I get it, without defining what it was that they were getting. And that's how I feel about Tantra. I've been studying Tantra now since 2008. And after studying it for a decade, I think I can't even explain to anyone what Tantra actually is or what it means, which is funny, right? But then I thought, can you explain what a rose is? Can you explain what a sunset is to someone who's never seen it before? Can you explain the color blue or a raspberry or what a mango tastes like? No, you can't. Which is why when my teacher walked in the very first course that I did with him, he said, I'm going to give you experiences, not theories. And then from there, you are going to learn. I have been asked to share. I've felt like sharing for a long time, but it's always hard because everyone wants to know, well, what is it? What's the theory? What's the idea? What are you doing? Well, what if there is no theory? What if there is no idea? What if there is no philosophy? What if it's beyond all that? What if an experience that you can have in your body is so much different than anything else you've ever experienced before, or so far astray from anything that you've had happen to you, that anything I'm going to say is going to be insufficient. It's going to be superfluous. It's going to be shallow. It's going to be unfulfilling. But that's how we work. We say, well, let's look at Nietzscheism, and let's look at Kant, and let's look at all of these different philosophies, and let's decide which one we like. And there's a whole smorgasbord of them, and then philosophy students and professors get together and they argue about which one is correct. And this person has points, this person has points. Same thing with religion. Well, is it Islam? Is it Christianity? Is it Judaism? Is it some other religion? And they argue points, and then people think, yeah, I agree with that, or I agree with that. But does any of them really win? Does any of them really convince anyone else? Does any of them actually make a point that changes you, right? Because that's the problem with philosophies, and this is the problem that Osho had. Go 2 posts back on my Facebook wall to see what Osho was dealing with. He used to speak to stadiums of people, 100,000 people at a time, and he used to give the most amazing speeches. He won the All India Speech Award when he was in school, and Speaker Award, and people used to come to the stadiums just to hear him speak. And he thought, okay, I'm speaking the truth. They love it. They're clapping, they're cheering, they're falling down in approbation, they're touching my feet, which is how you show your respect in India. Something must be happening. And yet, after years of this, he decided, wait a second, nothing's happening. No one is changing. No one is making progress. And thus he began the great frustration of every spiritual teacher, everyone who has reached some degree of enlightenment, of beauty, of presentation to the divine, of connection with the universe, has found that when they try to pass it on, people don't get it. Now we're back to Est again. I don't get it. What are you talking about? Awakened, enlightened, spiritually fulfilled, filled with the light of Christ, filled with the Spirit of God. What does any of that mean? I don't know what that means. Those are words. Those are empty words to me. And so Jesus had a bunch of parables. He said, well, it's like a pearl of great price, that if you found it, it'd be worth selling everything just to buy the field that it's contained in so that you could have that. Or it's like a wind that comes and it goes, and you see the leaves rustle, but you don't know why, because you didn't see it coming and you don't know where it's going. And all of his followers thought, well, is this what you mean by kicking out the Romans? And he's pointing to something much deeper, much more meaningful, much more purposeful. And that's how we are. We look at that surface thing. Well, will it make me rich? Will it give me better relationship or sex life? Will I be healthy? But these things are on the surface. These things are not necessarily external, but not essential, not central, not core. And so they kept asking you in S, did you get it? Because they wanted to force that moment of insight where you drop into your unique being and you fill yourself with that Spirit of God, where you open up, where you stop doing and you receive and it flows through you, right? And this is what all the masters point at. So Osho decided to do something different. He said, the only thing that's going to change you is if you, A, have a different experience, B, in a different environment, or C, do different things in your life. So I need to take you out of your existing environment, your home, where you think you are this person. You think you are the son, the brother, the mother, the father, the sister, the parent. And I take you away to a place, which sounds culty already, and that's okay, because cult is just short for culture, and you live in a cult right now. You live in a specific culture that creates a reality around you. And we see, very interesting in the past 2 years, that this cult has broken open, that there's two different levels of consistency, belief in society, that people are in, oh, well, I will do this, but I won't do this, or I accept this, but I don't see this. And the one side looks at the other side and says, you're crazy. I can't see what you see. It doesn't make sense, your perspective in the world. And now you understand where we get our perspectives. And to be honest, one perspective is TV and the other perspective is not TV, as far as I can tell. Me and groups of people who, those people who are feeling a specific way about what they're seeing, generally have a different perspective because of the reality that they're taking in. Where do you get your reality? Where do you get your, how am I supposed to act for other people? Where do you get your, what is acceptable in society and how do I know it? Where do you find out all these things, right? You find out all these things from wherever you choose your perspective from. Every man is taken captive by whom he listeth to obey. And no man can serve two masters. So where's your primary reference point or your perception space? And it's very hard not to put it in this external world. I tell Allison all the time, my goal when I got back from Europe was to sit on a mountaintop and meditate. Why? Because I wanted the perspective that was closest to, literally and physically, God, right? I wanted a perspective that was in nature. I didn't want a perspective tainted by the world. Well, the world had other plans. The universe had other plans for me. The divine had other plans for me. And so I was brought down and told, go to this city that's all about money and learn about how this world works. And I went kicking and screaming, and it was valuable for me because of where I was already. But now you have the opportunity to dive in and find something new, a different perspective, a different understanding than you've ever had before, and which I can't tell you about. I can't show you. We have all these callings. We say we put your hand to the plow, and if you look back, you're not worthy of it. And then Jesus says, if you're not going to sacrifice everything, you're not worthy of it. And there's a straight path and a narrow way that leads to life, and few people will ever find it. And that was his way of saying, do you get it? Do you get it now? Watch the movie Mary Magdalene if you haven't. Amazing movie. Joaquin Phoenix, Rooney Mara, unbelievable film. And really goes into how we're looking at this perspective when the divine, when God, when light comes and directs to you. I had someone tell me a couple months ago, my divine sources, my voices, they told me to be with you. And I said, okay, great, come be with me. And then this person said, well, I don't agree with it. My mind doesn't agree with that. I can't do that. Okay. You know, which voices are you getting, which perspectives? I found the voice that I needed to follow when I was on my mission the first time, right? So I'm in Germany and I'm tasked with converting people. And as I worked to convert people for months, not much happened. But then I learned there was something else. There was a still small voice, and the voice would tell me, go talk to that person there. say this to this person. And it was always something scary. It was always something that I wasn't otherwise going to do. And so when that voice came, I decided, what happens if I listen to that voice? What happens if I follow that voice? And I started doing it. I started following that voice that was coming in, that seemed external to me, didn't seem like me, wasn't what I would have done in the situation, didn't make any logical sense. And then boom, 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 I saw the miracles happen. I saw God begin to show up in the world, in my life, in other people's lives, through my presentation and listening to his voice, the Spirit of God, it present in the world. And as I learned to follow that, my whole life transformed from that moment on. Everything became different. Everything became changed. And so Osho had this idea, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh Osho, he said, instead of me talking at people, talking to people, giving them ideas and theories, let me change their behavior, what they're doing. If you decide you're going to make a change or a transformation and you don't change your behavior in any way, it's very questionable what you're changing, right? But he said, let me change that. So he pulled people in, and he took them to a different environment. He took them to a camp. He took them to a retreat, right? A retreat where you leave the world behind and you go to a different space. And he took them to a retreat and he taught them to meditate. He taught them to feel into themselves. He taught them to have that experience with the universal or the divine, or at least begin on a path that was going to open them up to the experience of the universal and the divine. And he was one of the first teachers to do it in this way in quite some time. There'd been, or he pulled in a different clientele, let's say. There had been ashrams, there had been places where you could go and have spiritual experiences, but did you know the people and did you understand what they were doing and what languages were they speaking? And they're disconnected from our experience and our reality. But he did it with the people of the West. And that was a completely different transformational experience. And so they stepped in and they had these experiences of connecting to themselves, the divine, the power within, the light within, the Spirit of God. And they began to see, they began to get it. They began to see, just like those who in Est were trying to make happen, there's a different experience of reality. Gurdjieff, if you've never heard of him, Gurdjieff was a famous teacher about 50 years before Osho. And he used to take his students and they would be cleaning the kitchen. He would say, stop. And you just freeze in place until he said to move again. It may be hours before he said to move again. And he would give you exercises to pull you out of your conditioned existence, because you know how everything is, right? You know what you're supposed to do. I know Wednesday night, I take the garbage out, right? I know 7:30 a.m., I wake up, I do my yoga, I take a shower, whatever, right? I have my schedule and I know what I'm going to do. But Gurdjieff said, we're going to break up that schedule. We're going to take you to a different place and we're going to give you different things to do, and we're going to pull you out of your mental processes that let you know what you're doing. If you go to work every day and you know what you're going to do, you go to school every day, you know what you're going to do, you go to church on Sunday, you know what's going to happen, you have your relationship with your partner, your spouse, you're doing the same thing, it's a routine, then you're stuck in the perspective of that behavioral movement. And the body is the physical vessel through which the mental machinations are limited. Why do you think they'd put children in chairs, little 6-year-olds, and tell them not to move all day? Because if they don't move, their bodies will not be able to process the information for their minds, and they will be stuck in whatever paradigm the teacher is giving them. Not an acceptable viewpoint for a lot of people, nonetheless is true. Why do you go to the military, and how do you stand in the military? At attention, right? Tension. At attention. So I have tension in my body, hardness, strength, so to speak, but solidity, dysflexibility. Why? Because they want, number one, the commands followed completely, and number two, they don't want you feeling. They don't want you in your emotional center. They don't want you in your softness. They don't want you in your feminine. They don't want you to connect with that overriding universal principle that can drop information and dispense it directly into your body, into your energy field. And if your body is tense, and if your body is shut down, and if your body is limited, then your mind will be too. And you can use that, different techniques within that, for transformation. But in the military, the idea is, no, we do want obedient robots. We want people who are willing to run into the breach and die on a command without thinking, without feeling, without saying, does this make sense? And as both sides train their soldiers to do that and send them to war against each other, those soldiers effectively die and efficiently die. And it doesn't matter who was right. So that solidity of the body, that solidity of the self is what, and maybe we're not like military solid all the time, but we have a certain solidity to us. We don't realize the body is 70% water. We don't feel like oceans that are flowing, right? We feel like solid objects that are moving through reality and making things happen. And there's a time for that, sure. But when we soften and flow with the body and the body's states, we find that actually, in actuality, we begin to receive a different level of personal experience through the messages that are coming. Because you cannot receive any information in this universe without your body, right? It flows through your body. Either your sight, sound, sensation, feeling, touch, taste, smell, or some sort of deeper sensation, which is also just another sensation. If you see a vision, you still see. If you feel in your heart, then you're still feeling, right? And so he opened them up to that flowing by allowing them to see, what is my mind doing? My mind that's projecting and creating. What has my mind been programmed to think and believe? And how am I projecting that into the reality? What is the placebo effect? How does the placebo effect work, right? I'm constructing reality based on my belief. This is medicine. It will make you healthy. I take it. I feel healthy. I'm healthier. My sickness is departing. Why? Because I told you it would. Because you believed it. So where does the healing come from? The mind. And yet medicine says, well, we'll correct against this. We'll make sure that the natural amount of people that heal themselves through the belief, we're going to do the math and find out what that percentage is and calculate down from it so that we know that even if a few people got healed in the placebo group, we're just going to say they did that with the power of their minds. Now, if people know how to heal themselves with the power of their minds, wouldn't you be focusing, instead of doctors, and calculating against that and doing math so that you see, well, okay, 20% got healed just from their minds and 40% got healed in the other group with their minds plus the medicine. Well, wouldn't you try to expand the placebo effect, which has no side effects, which has no long-term effects? So wouldn't you try to make that placebo effect as strong as possible? In fact, wouldn't you try to learn how to heal the person through the placebo effect without ever needing the substance that has side effects and withdrawals and issues, right? I think you would, but yet in our society we don't. We calculate against it, we fight it, we build on the other direction and battle it. And so he took them from this environment, put them in a new environment, and he had them conduct new experiences. First, he had to find they couldn't just sit in their experience. They couldn't just view their minds from the outside and their thoughts like clouds passing. There was so much, especially with the Westerners, there was so much tension, there was so much trauma, there was so much pain, there was so much mental activity because their energy had been pushed up into their heads like mine had been for decades, that when he started to bring them back into their bodies, they had no connection to it. They had no vibration with it. They had no understanding of it, of how to be in their body and to observe the mind. And so he had to pull the tension out of the body first. And he created many different techniques to do that, some of which are more effective than others, some of which are used today, and some of which have variations that people are using today. But when I take someone and say, if you'd like to know it, if you'd like to see what tantra is, for example, if you'd like to see what that power is that can take the power of your mind and magnify it, magnify it, right? Just like you hear stories of yogis. I've heard stories of yogis being buried alive for 30 years and pulled out and they're just fine, regulating their breathing and their heartbeat to be whatever they want it to be, or meditating in the mountains for years with virtually no movement and virtually no food and water. There's people who claim to be breatharians. There's people who do the exercise of Tummo. How do I raise my body temperature? Just using the power of my mind, my intent, my meditation, so that you can put in freezing weather frozen towels on my shoulders and they will steam and dry and I will be warm. My body will be physically warm, even though it's freezing outside through the power of my mind, through the power of belief. If you watch Darren, what's his name, on English TV, it'll come to me. Anyway, he takes people and puts them in baths with ice cubes and water. Their actual body temperature begins to sink. They've got the sensor that is watching their body temperature sink, but they're cool as cucumbers, no pun intended. They feel totally warm under hypnotic suggestion. In other words, the water's warm. Oh, okay, well, I get in the water. There's chunks of ice floating in it, and I'm just fine. The water's warm. Until the suggestion is removed, and then I'm freezing. I'm cold, right? People have anesthesia. They have surgery done, teeth pulled, major surgery done too, with under hypnosis. And the beliefs of the mind are able to eliminate the pain, are able to allow the process to happen, are able to speed up healing tremendously. Well, if we're going to use that for surgeries, if we're going to use that to understand that it's true because of the placebo effect, when we engage in medical trials, why aren't we doing that all the time? Why aren't we teaching our children to understand the power of their minds and to focus it to get what they want? Why aren't we teaching our children how to use that power to manifest in the world? Why aren't we teaching ourselves how to become healthy and strong and powerful and intelligent and to manifest and to get what we want in the world? Which also what Jesus talked about. Two people gather, they speak anything, they can move mountains. Faith is a grain of mustard seed, it'll all happen. So this is connected, and the truth is true no matter where. It's from Jesus, it's from Occidental religions, it's from all sorts of different places. And if you step into this different perspective, well, all of a sudden you're not wearing blinders anymore. All of a sudden you're seeing all around you. And that's what he wanted to do. That's how he wanted to show them what is it. So if you're interested in learning these things, let me know. Tell me. And if you want to find out that experience of it and magnify it so you can create it, let me know as well. Because I want to know, are others interested in this, or is this simply my fascination with the nature of reality and shifting it? Was there a man who walked on water? If so, how'd he do it? Or change water to wine? If so, how'd he do it? And what else is possible? Or perhaps we maybe just want more pleasure and a greater experience of life and living, and that's possible too. All of this is possible using the same technologies, and we are lucky, we're blessed, that these have now come from the East to the West so that we can implement them and access them here now. And then when you do that, you will have it. Come on the journey with me. Namaskaram. Love you.